The first thing they told me when I arrived was simple. Do not look directly at the Queen, do not speak unless spoken to, and under no circumstances should I try to be familiar with her. The warning came from a dozen different species, each one sounding more nervous than the last. Veteran officers lowered their voices whenever they mentioned her. Diplomats avoided saying her title unless absolutely necessary. Even battle-hardened mercenaries who had survived wars across half the galaxy seemed uncomfortable discussing her. That should have been my first clue. I was standing inside the central command hall of the Coalition flagship, a vessel so large it carried entire cities within its armored hull. Representatives from over 80 worlds filled the chamber. The air buzzed with tension. Everyone was waiting for the arrival of the most feared military leader in known space. The Deathworlder Queen. To most species, the very idea of a death world was terrifying. Worlds with crushing gravity, violent weather, deadly predators, unstable environments, and endless natural dangers were considered unsuitable for intelligent life. Yet humanity had not only evolved on such a world, but thrived. Humans had crossed deserts that could kill in hours. They had climbed mountains above the clouds. They had survived storms, earthquakes, diseases, and countless conflicts. While other species viewed danger as something to avoid, humans treated it as a challenge to overcome. That attitude unsettled the rest of the galaxy. For nearly 2 centuries after first contact, aliens struggled to understand humanity. They watched humans accomplish impossible tasks, endure impossible hardships, and somehow joke about it afterward. The galaxy respected humans, but it also feared them. And no human inspired more fear than the Queen. Stories about her circulated throughout Coalition space. Entire pirate fleets had surrendered rather than face her forces. Border warlords abandoned fortified systems when they learned her ships were approaching. Her personal strike squad had become legendary among military circles. Some claimed she never lost a battle. Others claimed she had never even come close. As I waited among the gathered delegates, I noticed something unusual. The chamber had grown silent. Not respectful silence, fearful silence. The massive doors at the far end of the hall began to open. Every eye turned toward them. The Queen entered first. She was taller than most humans, dressed in dark combat armor marked by countless campaigns. Her expression was calm, almost relaxed, which somehow made her even more intimidating. Behind her marched 6 members of her elite squad. Those soldiers looked like predators given military uniforms. Scars covered exposed skin. Cybernetic enhancements gleamed beneath the lights. Their movements were precise and disciplined. They scanned every corner of the room as if calculating the fastest way to eliminate any threat. The atmosphere immediately changed. Several alien delegates took unconscious steps backward. Others refused to meet the Queen's gaze. I understood why. She carried herself like someone who had survived things most people could not imagine. Then she stopped directly in front of me. The room froze. I could feel hundreds of eyes watching. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The Queen studied me for several long seconds. I should have been nervous. Instead, I noticed something unexpected. She looked exhausted. Not weak, not vulnerable, just tired. Like someone carrying the weight of an entire civilization on her shoulders. Before my brain could stop my mouth, the words slipped out. "Long trip, sweetheart?" The silence that followed was unlike anything I had ever experienced. The Queen's squad instantly went motionless. Several delegates gasped. One officer nearly dropped the data tablet in his hands. Every alien in the chamber stared at me as if I had just signed my own death warrant. The Queen herself didn't move. She simply continued looking at me. For one endless moment, nobody breathed. Then the corner of her mouth twitched. And that was when I realized something was about to happen that would change the galaxy forever. The twitch at the corner of the Queen's mouth vanished so quickly I almost thought I had imagined it. Around us, the command hall remained frozen. One of the squad members slowly turned his head toward me. The movement was small, but it carried enough warning to make several nearby delegates retreat another step. His eyes narrowed behind a cybernetic visor as if he were trying to understand whether I was incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. The Queen finally spoke. "You called me what?" Her voice was calm. That somehow made it worse. I shrugged. "Sweetheart." A collective gasp swept through the chamber. The Queen's soldiers exchanged brief glances. One of them actually looked away toward the ceiling as if trying very hard not to react. Something strange was happening. I had expected anger. Instead, everyone seemed confused. The Queen studied me for another moment before turning toward the assembled delegates. Begin the briefing. Just like that, the meeting continued. The tension remained, but now it had changed direction. Instead of watching the Queen, every alien in the room kept stealing nervous glances toward me. Apparently, I had become the most interesting thing in the chamber. A massive holographic display emerged above the center of the hall. Hundreds of star systems appeared as glowing points of light connected by trade routes and military corridors. Most of the map shone blue. One section glowed red. That was where the trouble was. A cluster of unexplored systems near the edge of known space had gone silent. At first, Coalition officials assumed the communication relays had malfunctioned. Then survey ships disappeared. Cargo vessels vanished. Military reconnaissance drones stopped transmitting. Within 6 months, 11 colonies had lost contact. Nobody knew why. The uncertainty frightened the galaxy more than any enemy fleet. Civilizations could prepare for war. They could not prepare for mysteries. A senior Coalition officer stepped forward. The affected region contains several Class 4 and Class 5 death worlds. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Even after centuries of exploration, death worlds remained notorious. Most species avoided them completely. The environments were too hostile, too unpredictable, and too dangerous. Humans, of course, often volunteered to explore them. The display zoomed toward one particular planet. A massive world appeared. Its gravity was nearly twice the galactic standard. Violent electrical storms covered entire continents. Predatory life forms dominated every ecosystem. Volcanic activity constantly reshaped the landscape. The average temperature fluctuated wildly between deadly extremes. Several alien delegates visibly shuddered. For humans, the planet looked difficult. For everyone else, it looked impossible. Our investigation teams established temporary outposts here, the officer continued. None survived beyond 3 months. The hologram displayed ruined structures scattered across hostile terrain. A winged predator larger than a transport shuttle appeared on screen. Another recording showed armored creatures charging through a research facility's defensive barriers. The footage ended abruptly. No explanation followed. The silence in the room deepened. I noticed the Queen watching the recordings with unusual focus. Unlike the others, she wasn't disturbed by the dangers shown on screen. She looked concerned. That caught my attention immediately. Fear was one thing. Concern was another. Humans were accustomed to danger. If the Queen was worried, then something larger was involved. The briefing continued. Data streams revealed a disturbing pattern. Every missing colony had vanished after detecting unknown signals originating from the unexplored systems. No one had managed to decode the transmissions. No one had identified their source. Yet every disappearance happened shortly after contact with those signals. The officer paused. We believe an intelligent force may be operating inside the exclusion zone. The room erupted with nervous discussion. First contact. Those 2 words carried enormous weight throughout the galaxy. Most civilizations remembered their first encounter with alien life. Sometimes it brought cooperation. Sometimes conflict, occasionally disaster. The Queen finally stepped forward. The conversation stopped immediately. Her gaze moved across the gathered representatives. Whatever is responsible has already eliminated multiple expeditions, she said. We will not underestimate it. The hologram shifted again. A final image appeared. This one was different. The picture had clearly been damaged. Static covered most of the recording. Only a dark shape remained visible. It towered above a mountain ridge on the surface of one of the death worlds. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew whether it was a machine, a structure, or a living creature. The image existed for only 3 seconds before disappearing, but the room remained silent long afterward. I felt a chill run through me. Not because of the figure itself, because of the Queen's reaction. For the first time since entering the hall, she looked genuinely unsettled. Then one of her squad members approached and quietly handed her a datapad. She read it once. Her expression hardened. Without warning, she looked directly at me. Out of hundreds of beings in the chamber, she looked only at me. Looks like your timing was unfortunate, she said. The room grew quiet again. I frowned. What does that mean? The Queen handed the datapad to me. The message displayed only a single line. A newly received transmission from the exclusion zone. And somehow, impossibly, it contained my name. The message burned across the screen in bright coalition script. Send the human who called sweetheart? For several seconds, I forgot how to breathe. All around me, the command hall erupted into confusion. Delegates demanded explanations. Military officers began issuing orders. Security personnel moved toward the exits. The Queen's squad immediately formed a protective perimeter around her, though I couldn't tell whether they were protecting her from the threat or protecting the threat from me. That's impossible, one alien officer snapped. The transmission came from a quarantine system. No one there should know anything about this meeting. The Queen took the datapad back and studied the message again. When was it received? She asked. 32 seconds after you entered the chamber, the communications specialist replied. The signal originated from the surface of Karen 7. Karen 7, the death world from the briefing. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Prepare my flagship. We leave immediately. You can't be serious, another delegate protested. We don't even know what this signal means. Exactly, the Queen said. And I intend to find out. Her gaze shifted to me again. You're coming with us. I'm just a civilian consultant, I said. Why would anyone on a death world be asking for me? That's the question, she replied. 2 hours later, I stood inside the launch bay of the Queen's flagship, watching crews prepare a dropship for departure. The vessel looked less like a transport and more like a flying fortress. Heavy armor covered every surface. Weapon systems lined the wings. The engines were powerful enough to punch through the atmosphere of a high-gravity world. A pair of alien technicians nearby whispered to each other, clearly unaware that human hearing was far better than they realized. Why would the signal ask for him specifically? One asked. Maybe it's a trap, the other replied. Humans are always charging into dangerous situations, I almost smiled. They weren't entirely wrong. The Queen approached, her squad following close behind. Before we land, there are a few things you should understand, she said. I'm listening. Karen 7 is not Earth. The gravity is nearly double what you're used to. The storms can tear apart armored vehicles. Several native species consider military-grade armor a food source. Sounds unpleasant. That's the polite description. One of her squad members snorted softly. The Queen continued. The previous expeditions were heavily equipped and well-trained. They still disappeared. Then why go back? She looked toward the dropship. Because if an unknown force can erase entire colonies without explanation, the rest of the galaxy is already in danger. The journey to Karen 7 took 3 days through unstable jump routes. During that time, I learned more about the Queen's squad. They were all humans. That surprised me less than it should have. Other species rarely survive the training required for deep Death World operations. Humans, with their stubbornness and adaptability, had become the Coalition's preferred specialists for extreme environments. One evening, while the ship cruised through hyperspace, I found 2 squad members arguing over equipment. The atmospheric filters won't handle the volcanic ash for long, one said. Then we improvise, the other replied. That's your solution for everything. It usually works. I laughed before I could stop myself. Both soldiers looked at me. What's funny? One asked. You sound exactly like every engineer I've ever met. To my surprise, they relaxed a little. For the first time since the meeting, I sensed that the squad's intimidating reputation hid something else: exhaustion, humor, and the kind of trust that only came from surviving impossible situations together. When Karen 7 finally appeared on the view screen, the entire bridge fell silent. The planet was enormous. Dark storm systems wrapped around it like scars. Lightning flashed across the atmosphere. Vast oceans churned beneath thick cloud cover. The ship's sensors immediately began issuing warnings. Gravitational turbulence detected. Electromagnetic interference increasing. Unidentified energy readings on the surface. The Queen stood at the center of the bridge, studying the data. Those energy readings weren't present during the last survey, she said quietly. Could they be natural? I asked. On a death world, almost anything is possible. The ship shuddered as the first atmospheric storm struck the shields. Outside the viewports, lightning illuminated the clouds. Somewhere beneath that violent sky, something had sent a message asking for me by name. And we were about to find out why. The dropship entered Karen 7's atmosphere like a stone falling into a storm. The entire vessel shook as gravity pulled against the engines. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. Outside the armored viewports, lightning crawled through black clouds the size of continents. Most species would never attempt a landing under these conditions. Humans called it a rough day. I sat behind the Queen and her squad as the pilot fought the controls. Every few seconds another alarm sounded. The ship's systems struggled to compensate for the planet's crushing gravity. One of the alien observers attached to the mission looked ready to faint. "How do humans live on worlds like this?" he asked. Nobody answered immediately. Then one squad member shrugged. "We start by falling down a lot as children." The alien stared at him. The soldier grinned. The joke did not help. The dropship finally burst through the cloud layer. The surface appeared below. The sight stole the breath from everyone aboard. Jagged mountain ranges stretched across the horizon. Rivers of glowing magma cut through valleys. Massive storms rolled over dark forests where creatures larger than armored vehicles moved beneath the trees. The planet looked alive, not welcoming. Not peaceful, alive in the way predators were alive. The Queen studied the terrain. "Locate the source of the transmission," a sensor operator frowned. "That's the strange part. The signal is moving." The bridge became quiet. "Moving?" the Queen asked. "Yes, whatever is broadcasting is traveling across the surface. No colony. No fixed installation? Something was carrying the signal?" The dropship changed course. Hours passed as they tracked the source through mountain ranges and violent weather systems. Every time the sensors narrowed the location, the signal shifted again. It almost felt like it was leading us somewhere. Eventually, the transmission stopped moving. The source settled inside a valley surrounded by cliffs. The dropship landed on a rocky plateau overlooking the area. The moment the rear ramp opened, the planet reminded everyone why it was classified as a death world. The gravity hit like a physical weight. Several alien specialists nearly collapsed. Their protective suits immediately activated support systems to help them stand. The humans simply stepped onto the surface. It was harder than Earth, but manageable. The alien observers watched in disbelief. One officer struggled to lift a scanning device while a human technician carried 3 supply crates at once. The difference was impossible to ignore. The galaxy had always known humans were tough. Standing on Charon 7 made them understand what that actually meant. The expedition descended into the valley. Towering cliffs blocked most communication signals. Strange animal calls echoed through the distance. Occasionally something enormous moved among the trees far below. Nobody liked those sounds. Not even the Queen's squad? As darkness approached, the team reached the signal's final coordinates and stopped. The valley floor was covered with wreckage, thousands of pieces. Fragments of ships, broken equipment, destroyed vehicles. The remains of every missing expedition. Silence settled over the group. Some of the wreckage looked years old. Other pieces appeared recently damaged. Yet no bodies remained, no signs of battle. No explanation, only absence. One of the alien scientists spoke softly. "It's as if they simply vanished." The Queen knelt beside a damaged transmitter. Her expression darkened. "Not vanished." She pointed toward a section of scorched metal. The marks were deliberate, symbols. Someone had carved them there, not nature. Not an accident, intelligence. The realization spread through the group like ice. They were no longer investigating a mystery. Something intelligent was watching them. Something powerful enough to erase entire expeditions. A sudden crack echoed across the valley. Every soldier immediately raised their weapons. Another sound followed. Then another. The noise came from the cliffs, high above them. The team looked upward. Shapes appeared along the ridges, dozens of them. Then hundreds. Nobody could clearly identify what they were. The fading light concealed most details, but they were enormous. Far larger than any known species. The alien observers froze. Fear spread through the expedition. One scientist whispered a prayer. Another backed away slowly. Even some experienced soldiers tightened their grips on their weapons. The Queen remained calm. Defensive positions. Her squad moved instantly. Humans and aliens formed a perimeter among the wreckage. The creatures above did not attack. They simply watched. Hundreds of glowing eyes stared down from the cliffs. Then every communication device in the valley activated simultaneously. The same message appeared on every screen. The same message that had summoned us across the stars. "Send the human called Sweetheart. The alien observers looked toward me, the soldiers looked toward me, even the queen turned toward me. For a moment, the entire valley seemed to hold its breath. The storm clouds overhead flashed with lightning. The massive shapes remained motionless on the ridges, waiting. And for the first time since arriving on Charon 7, I realized the message had never been a threat. It had been an invitation. The question was whether accepting it would save everyone in the valley or doom us all. The valley remained silent. Hundreds of glowing eyes watched from the cliffs while lightning flashed across the dark sky. Every weapon remained trained upward. Every soldier waited for the first sign of attack. It never came. The message still glowed on every screen. Send the human called Sweetheart. The queen stepped beside me. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. I looked around at the expedition. The alien scientists were terrified. The military personnel were prepared for the worst. Even the legendary Deathworlder squad looked uncertain. Nobody understood what was happening, but someone had to find out. I'll go, I said. Before anyone could object, I stepped forward into the center of the valley. The glowing eyes followed my movement. Nothing attacked. Nothing moved. For several long moments, the only sounds were distant thunder and the wind. Then the ground began to shake. The alien observers panicked immediately. Weapons rose. Warnings filled the communication channels. The queen raised a hand. Hold your fire. From the far side of the valley, a massive shape emerged from the darkness. Then another. And another. The enormous figures slowly approached. As they entered the light, everyone finally saw them clearly. The creatures were not monsters. They were intelligent beings. Ancient beings. Each stood taller than a transport shuttle. Their bodies were protected by natural armor that resembled stone and metal fused together. Their glowing eyes reflected intelligence rather than aggression. The largest one stopped a short distance away. Then, to everyone's shock, it spoke. Not through sound, directly through every communication device. Human identified. The valley fell silent. The being looked directly at me. You used the designation, Sweetheart? I blinked. Yes? A pause followed. Then something unexpected happened. The giant creature lowered its head. The gesture looked remarkably similar to respect. Correct response. Nobody understood. Not even the queen. What does that mean? I asked. The answer changed everything. Thousands of years earlier, long before the current galactic civilizations existed, these beings had explored the stars. They had encountered countless intelligent species. Most were cautious. Most feared danger, most avoided hardship whenever possible. Then they discovered humanity. At the time, humans had barely reached their own moon. Yet the ancient explorers became fascinated. Humans faced disasters and rebuilt. Humans faced impossible environments and adapted. Humans formed friendships in situations where other species expected conflict. Most importantly, humans possessed a strange habit. They often responded to fear with kindness. The ancient beings had observed humanity for centuries from a distance. The signal sent to the missing colonies had never been hostile. It had been a test. Unfortunately, every expedition that arrived treated the unknown presence as a threat. Every expedition attempted military containment. Every expedition failed the test. Not because they were destroyed, because they were peacefully removed from the area and relocated to safe settlements elsewhere on the planet. The missing colonists were alive, all of them. A wave of relief swept through the valley. The alien scientists stared in disbelief. The queen crossed her arms. So why ask for him specifically? The giant being turned toward me. Because he responded differently. Images appeared across every screen. Recordings from the coalition flagship, the meeting, the queen's arrival. My completely unplanned greeting, long trip, sweetheart? The ancient being continued. All others responded to reputation. The human responded to the individual. Understanding spread through the group. The message had never been searching for a specific person. It had been searching for a specifically human trait, the ability to see someone beyond their title, power, or fearsome reputation, the ability to connect. The queen looked at me and shook her head. You changed first contact by accident. That seems to happen a lot with humans. For the first time, her squad openly laughed. Even some of the terrified alien observers joined in. Over the following weeks, the truth spread across the galaxy. The missing colonies were recovered safely. Diplomatic relations with the ancient civilization were established. Karen 7 became one of the most important first contact sites in history. Yet the event left an even greater impact on the galaxy. For generations, many species had viewed humans as dangerous Deathworlders. They admired human toughness, resilience, survival skills, and determination, but they also feared them. Now they understood the full picture. Human strength was not just endurance. Human strength was not just survival. It was the ability to remain compassionate in a harsh universe. The ability to build trust where others expected conflict. The ability to reach out a hand when everyone else reached for a weapon. Months later, as our ship departed Karen 7, I stood beside the Deathworlder Queen and watched the storm-covered world disappear behind us. "One question," she said. "What?" A rare smile appeared on her face. "Are you ever going to stop calling me sweetheart?" I grinned. "Not a chance," her squad groaned. The bridge erupted with laughter. And somewhere beyond the stars, an entire galaxy finally began to understand why humanity had become legendary. Not because humans came from a death world, but because no matter how dangerous the universe became, humans never stopped being human. Thanks for watching this story. If you enjoyed this HFY science fiction adventure, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more epic stories.